Singapore Airlines has dropped the idea of flights to nowhere.
Singapore Airlines has confirmed it's begun laying off staff.
Singapore Airlines is expecting a full-year net loss for the first time in its history due to COVID-19.
You've probably seen all the news about Singapore Airlines recently. Our national carrier is kinda in deep shit. Well, the entire aviation industry is, thanks COVID-19.
The government will continue to support SIA, CAG, and other companies in the aviation sector as much as we can.
It's no secret that Singapore Airlines has been a cornerstone of Singapore's success. More than 12% of Singapore's GDP is supported by the aviation sector. In 2019, Changi Airport's total passenger traffic was 68.3 million. For financial year 2018/2019, SIA Group carried 36,094,999 passengers in and out of Changi Airport, essentially Singapore. This means more than half the people who came to Singapore before the pandemic were carried by SIA, Scoot and Silk Air combined. Okay, in case you're thinking, so what? That's before the pandemic. IATA already said the volume of air travel won't return to pre-COVID levels until 2024. Then how? Today we're going to try and explain why SIA must be saved, revived. It has to emerge from the woods. Okay, before anything else, let's have a quick history lesson. A long time ago, there was an airline called the Malayan Airways Limited, MAL. It started flying in 1947 between KL, Ipoh and Penang. And after the formation of the Federation of Malaysia, the airline changed its name to Malaysian Airways Limited. When Singapore and Malaysia stopped being BFF in 1965, the airline was renamed again to Malaysia Singapore Airlines in 1966. But of course, since it was essentially two countries now, that arrangement didn't last very long. Well, it lasted 6 years in fact. In 1972, they split into two different national carriers so Malaysian Airlines and Singapore Airlines. Okay, back to the point. Basically, it's two things that make SIA so important to Singapore. One, it's an essential brand for Singapore, and two, it's key to Singapore's status as a global aviation hub. Foreigners know Singapore for several things. MBS, super trees, no chewing gum, maybe microphone, and Singapore Airlines.
Singapore girl, her home is 5 miles high. You're a great way to fly.
From the start, SIA was an ambitious attempt by a small country to establish itself globally by creating a top-class international carrier. SIA focused on its unique brand of customer service in a time where most airlines were mostly just focused on bringing people to places. We were the first to introduce meal choices, free in-flight drinks, and personal entertainment systems on board. In 1972, when our national carrier officially became SIA, the Singapore Girl was born. Fun fact, the iconic sarong kebaya was actually designed by Pierre Balmain. Yeah, Balmain, the atas brand. The Singapore Girl is a physical manifestation of SIA's hospitality and the promised flight experience. Graceful, warm, attentive, whatever you want to call it. And people everywhere fell in love. Of course, they also spent millions on advertising. And it worked. The Singapore Girl became SIA's most recognizable trademark, and the airline became known for its quality cabin service for its passengers. And as the airline grew in reputation and international prominence, SIA became one of Singapore's most recognizable brands. SIA has been named the world's best airline several times by different research firms in the last 2 decades. The cabin crew are often reminded that they are ambassadors of Singapore throughout their training. It's more than just being an air steward or stewardess. They represent Singapore on a global scale. Which kind of makes sense since a national flag carrier has often been referred to as an embassy with wings. It is especially important considering that we are a small nation. Our tiny red dot needs our own national carrier to help us stimulate trade, boost tourism, and assert our sovereignty. It's like if a foreigner asks you where you're from, and then you say Singapore, and they know Singapore because of Singapore Airlines, and not, oh, that's in China, right? This is not unique to Singapore. Other successful national carriers, such as Qatar and ANA, have the same effect on their home countries. National carriers project its host destination to the world, and is also a symbol of its culture. Singapore Airlines is a commercial business, but it also operates with a national agenda. National carriers can help people take a special pride when foreigners regard their home airlines highly. This is because there is a shared perception that the success of an airline speaks well of her nation as a whole. So in many ways, the success of SIA is linked to the success of Singapore in placing us on the map, at the top of the charts, and at the top of people's choices. So it's basically like, hello, Singapore is awesome and an actual country, okay? Not like that CNN article said. And this leads us to the other reason why SIA is so important to Singapore. It is key to our status as a global aviation hub. Let's put it this way. Can you imagine a Changi airport without Singapore Airlines? That's like more than half the passengers gone. Singapore Airlines and Changi Airport go together like kaya on toast. An airport as big as ours usually has a large airline anchoring it, which is our national carrier in Singapore's case. The government has said multiple times that they want Singapore to be a global aviation hub.
Our air hub.
Air hub.
Air hub.
Air hub.
Air hub.
Meaning that they want Singapore to be the place where all the airlines want to be, to have more people travelling to our country through our airport, to have more goods transported, etc, etc. Basically to be that central point and location for aviation in Asia Pacific. And that's exactly what SIA as our national carrier does. It brings people, ideas, money into Singapore via its route network. More specifically, as mentioned before, 36,094,999 people in financial year 2018/2019. The business potential of the city and country as a whole is elevated by accessibility. In 2019, Singapore was ranked the second best place to do business by the World Bank. Good connectivity also helps our tourism sector prosper. And so a part of SIA's strategy was to develop Changi Airport into an aviation hub. This national agenda helps secure Singapore's global connectivity and trade interests. Because technically, while any large enough airline could boost our connectivity, they will operate solely on commercial interests, which means in times of crisis, they could cut services at any time. But it's not just solely focused on our airport though. SIA doesn't just fly planes, they have a whole network of subsidiaries and linked entities, meaning it creates a shit ton of jobs for people. It's an entire ecosystem. Take SATS for example, which started out as a wholly owned subsidiary of the airline. From providing in-flight catering to gateway services, the company has more than 14,000 employees. And speaking of employment, as of March 2020, SIA Group, including SIA Engineering, employed more than 28,000 staff. In fact, the air transport sector in Singapore directly employs 119,000 people. SIA's contributions in making Singapore an attractive air hub have also indirectly brought in key aerospace companies from around the world. Do you know that Rolls-Royce, General Electric and Airbus have all set up shop in Singapore? Together with many other businesses that deal with aircraft maintenance, repair and refurbishment. And once you include the knock-on effect SIA has from supply chain and logistics, transport, hospitality, retail and F&B, so long story short, SIA has to emerge from the woods. That's why the government is doing all they can to support SIA.
I have described our airport as a lung of Singapore. Just as a lung takes in oxygen and vitalizes every part of the human body, the airport connects Singapore with the outside world and energizes every sector of our economy.
It's vital to the goal of retaining Singapore's status as a global air hub and is essential to branding Singapore. Beyond its commercial interests, SIA also serves a national agenda of both developing our country's interests and cultivating interest and confidence in our country internationally. Also, can you imagine how difficult rescue and diplomatic missions would be without a national carrier? Air travel is said to recover from 2024, but it seems like we can start travelling again soon. And SIA is slowly increasing the number of their flights. No one knows what will happen in the future, but one thing is certain. SIA is pretty damn important to Singapore. And so it must soar again, but with a destination in mind lah.
Welcome to Singapore, ladies and gentlemen, and to all our residents, a warm welcome home.